class?
You said five declarations and five initialization.
I have them here. I wrote them out. I listed them out for you guys in the assignment. I'm sure you can see it here.
Yeah, but you, you, you didn't send this video, so I, I couldn't see it.
What do you mean by I didn't send it? I did not send you guys the video of the last class.
I did not see it.
And nobody requested of the video. Wow. I think they quite serious with this class. You guys are very, very serious with this class. So that's your excuse now for not doing the assignments.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know there was that. I forgot I added extra things to the assignment, so I just did the one.
So according to the one you did, what are the stuff you created? You can share your screen. Let me see how you did it. Let me stop sharing. You can share your screen. Let me see the one you did. And let me also try to forward that stuff too. So share your screen and show me the one that you did. Okay. So you initialized the names with var. Okay. What's supposed to be on line 5? Hmm? Can you hear me, Clinton?
Yes, yes.
What's supposed to be on line 5? Line 5, you didn't declare a variable name on line 5. Okay. On line 8, you have two words there. I believe you have birth month. The M is supposed to be capital M. I said when you're creating variable names, after the first word, the second word that comes there or that you're adding should start with a capital letter. That's what we call camel case variable name declaration. So it should be the next words after it should have that. Okay. Mm, birth month, app, occupation, scoring, amount, price, with height. Okay. Okay, you initialize the ones you've created. If you notice, you have an error on line 28. Did you notice it? Did you notice that you have an error on line 28? There's a red mark there. Did you notice it? Okay. So what happened with that was that I said whenever you're creating, like, okay, now last class we talked about primitive data types and composite data types, and I said I gave examples of primitive data types that include string, number, um, boolean, null, undefined, right? And then I said there's one thing about primitive data types. Primitive data types take a single kind of value. Like if you declare a string or you initialize a string, if you initialize a string, it should just be a string. But in this case, you initialized using a number, and then you added what will I call it, a special character. And a special character in this case is not a number. That's why it was throwing an error. So if you want to declare or initialize rather a primitive data type, it has to be of a single type. Is either is a string or a number or a boolean or a null or it's undefined. You can't mix them together. I don't know if that's clear, except in a case where you have Naija for life. That one is like a word. You put it in a string. That number there becomes a string. But in a case where you didn't put it in a string, in this case that you had score range, you didn't put it in a string. So that special character there is throwing an error. Did you get what I explained?
Yes.
Okay. On line number 5, it's also throwing an error because you just called a keyword. You did not declare anything. It does not have a variable name, and you can't do that. It's wrong. It's just like saying let or const, and you don't put anything there. It's wrong. So you either get rid of it or you create a variable name. Is it clear?
Yes.
Alright, so you can stop sharing. Jesus. Babe, no important. Okay, so for today, we are basically going to be talking about arithmetic operators or mathematical operators, if I'll put it that way. Basic mathematics operators. We've touched some of them in our last class, like addition, subtraction. I, I don't think we've talked about modulus and division, so we'll touch those ones today. So today's date, I believe, is 7th. It's the 7th of December. Okay. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about before I even continue, Clinton, any day that I don't send you a video, request it. I wouldn't like if you guys come to the next. That means you didn't go through the last class. There's a very high chance you don't even remember what was taught in the last class because you didn't go through the video. So next time that you don't get a video from me, request the video.
Okay.
Alright. So today we're going to be talking about arithmetic or mathematical operators, whichever one you choose to call them or call it. And they include addition, which is the most popular one, then subtraction, or should I even use document? No, subtraction. We have multiplication, division, and modulus. We are already familiar with most of these arithmetic operators in mathematics because I believe everybody has a grounding in mathematics to an extent. So I believe that we already have an understanding. of most of them, but we may or may not have heard of modulos before. So let me start with basic addition. Okay, so addition basically is getting the summation of two or more values. So let's say num value 1 is 34, which is a number in this case, not a string, and value 2 is 56. Then let's sum equal to value 1 plus value 2. What do we expect is going to happen? Hmm? What do you think is going to happen based
To
on what we've done
to
so far?
to add the both numbers.
Okay, it's going to take the value that this variable has. In this case now, we are using the variable names, and this variable represents the value it contains. So whenever something is pointing to a variable name, it's actually pointing to the content inside of that variable, not necessarily the variable. The variable name is just like a name for whatever it's carrying. So if it's carrying a string, it's pointing to that string. If it's carrying a boolean, it's pointing to that boolean. If it's carrying a number, it's pointing to that number. And in this case, the value 1 and value 2 are carrying numbers. So this is basically like saying 34 plus 56. So in order for us to see this in our browser, let me open this. Oh god, what did I do? Right? Let me open this in our browser. Okay, this would not work. Let me. Mm, okay. Alright, so let's get this started. In this case, I'm going to say document. I said just like you have HTML that you can use what is it called? You can use HTML tags and whatever. In the case of when you want to write to the document, to the window aspect, to this particular page, you make use of document.write. That's the way it works for JavaScript. But most times we don't use document.write. We mostly make use of our console.log. This is where most of our programming takes place. It's not that you're going to be writing the programs here, but you're going to be seeing the results of the programs you're writing here. You're going to read the results here. Some can be read on the screen, most are read here, especially when you're trying to compare or check if there are errors, or check the results that you've gotten to be sure that you're on the right track, or if the function you've created is doing exactly what you want it to do. We mostly make use of console.log. So it's high time you start getting yourself acquainted with this page or this point in your browser, because it's like a very important aspect of programming that every programmer should have an idea of. So in this case, I'm going to say document.write I'm going to say this, the sum, the results of the summation is, and then you remember that if we want to get, I want to get this sum now, I'm not going to write it inside here, because if I write this sum inside here, what happens? Do you remember what I said will happen if I write this sum inside of these quotes? inside of this quote, do you remember what I said you to do? If you write anything inside of a quote, what does it become? Clinton.
It doesn't. Uh, I don't think it still becomes a quote.
I said anything you write inside of a single or a double quote, what does that thing become? What is that thing? Like what
It,
type of data type does
it,
that automatically become?
it becomes like a sentence in the web page.
Okay, it becomes a string. So in this case, we want to refer to this sum because what I want to say is the result of the summation is this sum, and in this sum is basically 34 plus 56. So whatever 34 plus 56 is what is stored inside of this sum, right? Inside of this sum rather, right?
Yes.
So in
Yes.
this case, if I put this sum here but is guarded by this quote, it's automatically a string and it's not going to give us what we want. But if I take it out of this string and I say the summation is this, it's throwing an error because there should be something joining it. And I said you can either use a comma or you can make use of a plus. This is concatenation. And I said we will get to that point when we proceed, like as we go on in the course. So you can either make use of a comma or a plus. So if we go back now to see the document the right, they said, okay, we have to use a break tag so that it will go to the next line. So the summation of the result of the summation is 90, and 90 is basically 34 plus 56, right? So the next thing we are going to do is just talk about subtractions. Subtraction. Okay. I'm just going to say const date. Let me say 2023 because we're in the year 2023. And then I'm going to say const Catherine's age. Catherine, no, it's supposed to be a small letter. And then age. Let's say Catherine is the value of date, which is 2023. We are trying to find out how old Catherine is. So date is 2023 minus the year she was born. Let's say she was born in the year 2014. And then if we now want to find how old Catherine is, we're going to say document.write, and I'll say Catherine is, and in this case Catherine is comma, she is Catherine age, comma, you remember, or plus, you either make use of comma or plus. Catherine is Catherine years old. This thing I'm doing, is it clear? Is it clear to you? Are you
Yes.
confused?
No.
Okay. So what I did here is very simple. Let me give a space so that this thing is not joined together. And in this case, I'll give a break tag. I usually forget that break tag. Okay. So in this case, I said this is a string, right? Catherine is probably 10 years old or 9 years old, right? But this 9, the 9 we're trying to get, which is this 2023 here minus 2014, is not a string, it is a number. So to be able to like get the value inside of this scattering, we're not going to write it inside of quotes, we're going to write it outside of the quote. But in this case we also have other um strings that we want to write. So at every point that we want to write something that is not a string, we break it using a comma and then continue in our quotes after we are done. This is exactly what I did here. I had my first string, I wanted a number, I closed that string and broke it with a comma, or you can use a plus, and then wrote the variable that contains the number that I want, and then continued with my string. So at every point you open a string, you must close it, else you're going to have an error. Hope that is clear. So if we go back now, we're going to see Catherine is 9 years old. And I can log this thing to the console. If I don't want to do document dot write, I can basically say I'll log um, sum to the console, and sum will give us 90. In this case I can log Catherine's age, and it's going to basically give us 9 in our console. So someone might say, why don't we write this thing directly inside the console? It's a bit different for console. Let's see if we can get this thing into our console.log v. And then here it gives the break tag. So we're not going to use this break tag because this is we're not writing into this document. Is more like a HTML file. We're converting this JavaScript into a HTML file, right? I talked about it when the first time I talked about document.write. It's just like your HTML. If you want to write into your HTML document, this is what the document.write method does for you. But in the case of console.log, it is seeing it as a string. That's why we have to remove it. It's seeing this break as a string. It's not seeing it as a HTML tag. It is seeing it as a string because it's inside of this double quotes or quotes in general. So in this case, it's going to say the result of summation is 90. And we can do the same thing for Catherine's age. We can log it to the console, but this time around, we're also going to get rid of the break tag, because this break tag is not functioning as a HTML tag at this point. Instead, it is functioning as a string because you're logging it to the console. You're not writing it to a HTML document. So far, do you have any question? If you do, please let me know. This thing is not this thing is a string. Why is it a string? This sum is a string at this point. Why is it a string? A number shows as purple, but in this case, this 90 is showing as a string. I wonder why. Okay, in this case, I used plus, so that is concatenation. At this point, it has been changed to a string. If you use plus, it's automatically changing the value of the sum or the value of whatever to a string. But if you make use of a comma, it's going to see it in this point or at this point as a number. These things I'm saying, is it clear to you? Clinton.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So can you tell me the difference between using a plus and a comma? Because we have seen what happened with using a plus, and we have seen what happened with using a comma. So can you tell me what happens when you use a plus based on what we have in this line? This is our console.log, like 141, and this is line 141. In this case, we used a plus. When we did console.log, line 149, this is a number. This one is supposed to be a number, but it has a different color. Line 149 in this case. So can you tell me why they look different, why they're supposed to both have the same, like the same data type.
When you use a plus sign, it automatically becomes a string. But
Okay.
for the case of a comma, it's different.
Okay. So, like I said, I've always said that this thing is called concatenation. When you use a plus, plus tends to change everything in its part to a string, except you use something called a number format, but that one is a bit complicated. So, whenever you use a a a number, a plus sign, whenever you make use of a plus sign, you're concatenating. Concatenation is just joining things together regardless of what data type it is. They just become like a straight sentence. That's the way it is. Whatever value that is inside this 90 here, inside of this sum, is no longer 90 as a number, but it's like writing 90 as a string. It's just like saying sum is equal to 90. That's what this sum that is written inside here is like, not the sum of a number. In this case, that is what this plus does to it. We'll get to a point where we can also, I'll also let you know how to change that the string here into a number while you're also using the plus. But in this case, I think comma is safer to use if we want to maintain the original value that the variables have. Okay. Let me show you an example. If I say log to the console 3 plus 2 plus 5, what are you expecting to see?
7.
7. And then what happened? Okay, we are seeing a 7 here on line 142. This is line 142. In this case, if, okay, this thing might not really work because at this, let's say log to the console. This example I wanted to use will not stand with that sum, because in this case this is a string. So if a string is joined to a number, that's when that number is changed to, using a plus sign, that's when the number is changed to a string. But if both of them are numbers, it still maintains its like value as a number. What do I mean by that? If I say console.log sum plus 5, in this case this sum is still a number because it is working with a number. And if you go back, sum is 95. Sum was 90 plus 5 is 95. But in a case where this 5 becomes a string, this is what you're going to have. 905 is just 90 and 5. It just joined everything together. That is what happened with this sum here. If I give a space, you're going to still see 90 space 5. This example I gave, did it clarify what I was trying to say here?
Yes.
Okay. So this plus sign would act as a plus sign if you're adding values of the same data type, which is if you're adding two numbers. But if you're adding a string and a number, it will automatically change that number to a string and merge it together, called concatenation. Concatenation is spelled concatenation. This is what concatenation, this is what it means to concatenate. It will just take the value that 90 has here and join it to this 5. That's exactly what he did here. This is a string and he just got this sum, changed it to a string. At this point, this sum here is no longer a number. It is now a string. That's the same thing he did here. But if I get rid of this string that it has here, it will automatically go back to being a number. So therefore it will count 90, count 5, and then add 90 plus 5, which will give us 95. I think I've exhausted or explained this thing well enough. So let's continue. The next one I'm going to talk about, Jesus, 12:44 already. The next one I'm going to talk about is division. All these things are just basically the same thing. Once you have an idea of whatever was taught in high school, grade school, secondary school, you would understand this. So division is just basically saying, let at this case we already have okay, sum here is 90. Is 90. Okay, so let me say let let result, have I used it before? No. Let result be equal to sum divided by 3. So if I write this to the not to the console, if I write it to our document, we're just going to have results. Results is equal to result is equal to comma result, and the result I'm referring to here is this sum divided by 3. At this point, sum is value 1 plus value 2, which is 34 plus 56. So 34 plus 56 is 90. So we are basically saying 56 minus 90 divided by 3, and we are going to get 30. So if we go back, we are going to get 30. I always forget to get my, when we are writing to the document, we use a break tag and then it goes to the next one. The result is equal to 30. Or let me just get rid of this. It's equal to 30, and this is what we have. So the next one we're going to have is multiplication. Multiplication. And then we're going to have cons answer is equal to, the answer is equal to the result we got from sum, result multiplied by 2.5 or 1.5, and then I'll log this one to the console, answer. And when we log it to the console, we are going to see 45. So this is basically saying 30 multiplied by 1.5. If you say 30 multiplied by 1, you see 30. If you say 30 multiplied by 2, we're going to see 60. 30 multiplied by 1.5 is 45. That is clear so far, right? Then let's get
Yes.
to, we've already talked about subtraction, we've talked about addition, division, multiplication. Let's talk about modulus. Modulus might be the one you may or may not have heard of. So modulus is basically the result you get after division. let me put it this way. If I say the remainder, not the result, the remainder of a division, if I say 2 divided by 2, what am I going to get? 2
1.
divided by 2 is 1, right? Remainder what?
Yes. Nothing.
Remainder
0.
nothing, which is 0. So at that point our modulus is 0. But if you say 3 divided by 2, we're going to have 1 and half, which is 1.5. So at that point our modulus is going to be 0.5 or 5. And I'm not sure which one it is, but is that 0.5 or it's going to give us 5? The remainder is what is going to give us, not the result. So let's if you notice, I always like to use let and const. I'm not very comfortable using var, because when we get to very complicated codes, var can pose a little bit of a problem because it is easily accessible. But const and let are not always accessible and is somehow okay for your code. So for now, we'll be making use of them a lot more than we'll make use of var. So let's 3 modulus sorry let's modulo result be equal to 3 modulo 2. This is how you write it. And then we're going to log this straight to the console, and then I'm going to say modulo result. If I go back, we're going to have, okay, it has 1, that's 3, that's 2, 1 remainder. Wow, wait. Let me use 2 in this case. We have 0. Let me use 4. We have 0. Okay, so 3 modulo 2 is 1. Okay. So 2 will go into 3 ones and would have a remainder of 1. 5 modulo 2 should then be 1 as well. Okay, that's right. Okay, 2 will be seen twice inside of 5 and 1 will be left. If I say 2 modulo 7, it's still going to be 1 because 2 will go into 7 3 times and 1 will be left. So let's say 7 modulo 3, we're still going to have 1. Let's look for something different that is not going to give us 1. We have 3. Okay. So modulo results are specific to them. I don't have all the answers by heart. I just let JavaScript do the work for me. So at least you understand that modulo is the answer that is left after division has, the remainder rather, that is left after division has taken place. So if you divide something by something, whatever is remaining that can no longer be worked on or that can no longer be used is the answer. So if I say 3 into 7 divided by 3, or 5 divided by 2, 2 will go into 5 2 times. That's 2 divide 4 is basically 2, remainder 0. But in this case, there will be 1 left because 2 plus 2 plus 1 is 5, right? So
Yes.
basically understand it like that. So far, if you're confused with anything, ask your question. Ask your question if you're confused with anything. How many more minutes do we have? 7 more minutes. So ask your question.
I don't have any question.
You don't have any question. Okay. Let me give this example. Let's say const first. I don't know if I've used this first name somewhere. Let's say first name is Jennifer, and then we say const last name is going to be Briggs. Oh, my const is wrong. And also be conscious of your spellings, because if your spelling is wrong, your code will run into serious errors. So you have to be very careful when you're writing anything. So in this case, I'm going to say document dot write, and I'll say my name is shift break tag. Now I'll say my name is, and I want to say my name is Jennifer Briggs. So what I'm going to do is very simple. I can either use a plus sign because I'm already working with a string, or I can use a comma, whichever one. Hope that's clear. So in this case,
Yes.
since I'm already working with a string, I'll make use of a plus sign. My name is first name plus last name. There is something that will be wrong with this code. The reason is this thing is we are doing what we call concatenation. So it's going to join together. This first name and this last name are going to be joined together. Let's go ahead and see it. We're going to say, see, my name is Jennifer Briggs. The reason it is so is because I said concatenation is basically just bringing two things together. There is no space here, neither is there a space here. You see, it has moved, but that's not the best way to go about it. The best way to handle it would be very simple. To come in here and say, or I can still say plus, and I'll say I want you to give me a space. This is what we're going to do. This is creating a space between the first name and the last name, and if we go back, we're going to see that there's a space there. This thing I just did it get you confused?
No.
Okay. So first name space last name. In this case, I already gave a space from the string. So it's either you use the string like I did here to give a space, or in this case, you just use a space. Instead of going to touch these variables that have been declared, you can use this as the space. So far, no question. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to log something to the console, and I'll say I want my answer here that I got as 45. So I'm going to say answer divided by 5. What do I expect to get? 9, because 45 divided by 5 is 9. So I don't know if we still have time for assignment operators. So the next thing we're going to talk about, we talked about mathematical operators. So the next thing we're going to talk about is assignment operators. It's still basically plus, minus, but in this case is a bit, just a little bit different. Operators, okay. Okay, assignment operators. So assignment operators has to do with plus equals. Let me explain. If I say const let number one be equal to 10. And I want to say, instead of saying let this if I, instead of redeclaring this thing and saying number one here should be equal to 10, which is the value, plus probably 11. Instead of writing this thing number one, which is 10 plus 11, I can say I can do this. This is what you call an assignment operator. The assignment here is the equal to, you're assigning this operator plus to the value. So this is basically saying the value inside of this number, which is 10 plus 11. If we console this and check the value of number one, what do we expect to get? Yeah?
Damn.
No. First of all, it's just like saying assignment operators. Let me explain something a bit because it seems you are a bit confused. It's just like saying, I said with let will allow you to reassign values to it, but constant, you can't reassign a value to constant. So if I say let age equal to 34, I can come back here and say, okay, I've used age before. Let me say no number, though this is, I'm not supposed to do this like this, but I can decide to say this number is equal to 5 and there will be nothing wrong. This is just like reassigning. So in this case, this is what we did here. We just reassigned this number one. But in this case, we are reassigning it by adding something new to it. We are saying we know your number 10 here, but we want you to add 11 to your value. Instead of saying this number is now equal to 11, we are saying the value it has plus a new number. So in this case, we're expecting to get 21 because it is the value that it has here, 10 plus the new number. So if we go back to our console and we check, we're going to get 21. That's how assignment operators work. If the same thing, if you have the same thing as, and in this case we make use of let, because it's let that will let us reassign. You can't make use of const in reassigning a value. Okay, I don't know if you're following this class, but if you are, I would like for you to answer me when I ask you questions. So number
Yes.
two, I'm going to say minus equal to 13. So if we log this to the console, what are we expected to get? What do
Two.
you, in this case we did an addition sign. In this case we are doing a minus sign. So what do you expect? What do we expect to get?
Two.
15,
Two.
2.
Two.
Okay, 2. And that is right because we are basically saying 15 minus 13. So this thing we just did here is same thing as saying number 2 is equal to 15 minus 13. That's what this thing means. So you can either write it like this or you write it like this, just like a shorter form of writing this thing. You can write it this way or you can write it this way, but they are doing exactly the same thing. That's what assignment operators are like. Hope that
What
is
if
clear. Mm.
what if the number is lower than the one you're minusing it from? Will it still give you a positive value?
It won't give you a positive value, obviously. It's just like saying 15 minus um 20. To definitely give you a small sign. And if I say 20 here, to give you a minus sign, I mean. So it's going to give you minus 25. Let me close this. It's not supposed to give you minus 25. This is supposed to give you 15 minus 20. It's supposed to give you minus 5. Yes, it's supposed to give you minus 5. The reason why it's giving us minus 25 is because this thing is just like saying, at this case, it's already minus 5. So minus 5 minus 20 is minus 25. Do you get what happened? It's just like I
Yes.
said, if I say let number be equal to 5, and then I come back and say number is equal to 5 minus 10. In this case, 5 minus 10 is already minus 5, and I come back and say number minus equals, or let me just use the one you're used to. Number is already minus 5. Minus 5 minus 20. That's exactly what this thing we did here means. So in this case, this is going to give us minus 25, because minus minus is still minus when you are doing an addition. Minus 5 plus minus 20, or minus minus 20, whatever. So this is like what we did here. So but it's supposed to give us minus 5. So this is like saying 15 minus 20, which is minus 5, without this line. So let me get rid of this line. So this is what we have. This is an example of an addition and a subtraction arithmetic sign. So the next one we have is modulus. Is the same thing. Multiplication is the same thing. We also have what we call the increment and the decrement. They are also part of these assignment variables. Increment. Increment is basically number number one has a positive value. Let me make use of it. Number one here, the value it has is 21. So if I say number one plus plus, what this means is this 21 plus 1. If I say number 2 plus plus, what it means is minus 5 plus 1 is going to give us minus 4. And this one is going to give us 22. So if we log all these things to the console, say number 1 comma and number 2, we can log them separately however you like. You can do this thing in 2 lines. You log this one or you log this one, anyhow you like. So this is supposed to give us 22 and minus 4. 22 and minus 4. So what plus plus does is it will add an extra 1 to the value that variable already contains. It will add an extra 1. If you say minus minus, it will reduce 1. Is it clear? Clinton,
Yes.
is it clear? Decrement. I think this should be the last one. So it's as good as saying answer. Answer is 45. I don't want to create new variables. Is equal to answer minus minus. We already have 45. So 45 minus 1 is going to give us 44. So if we log our answer to the console, we're going to have, okay, constant variable. Oh god, you see, it's throwing an error because answer here was declared with a constant variable. So it cannot be used. I must use something that has let. So let me say results instead here, and I log results to the console, and then this is what I'm going to have. 29 Result minus minus. Here we had the sum we had was 90 divided by 3, which gave us 30. So 30 minus 1 is 29. So that is it. Do you have any questions? Hmm? Clinton, do you have any questions? Are you here? Alright, I'll go straight to give you an assignment that will be submitted with the other one in the next class. The assignment is going to basically be write a program, which is basically write a code or write whatever we've been writing here before. Don't let the program or the big words scare you. Write a program that calculates the area of a rectangle and print it out to print it out in the document dot write using this format. And the format I would like to use is this. So what this thing is basically saying is calculate the area of a triangle, of a rectangle, which I believe is width, height times width. I believe it is height times width. So to calculate the area of a rectangle is height times width. So you
Sorry,
can.
I lost my connection. I didn't get everything.
Okay, so I'm in the aspect of giving you an assignment, and I said the assignment is that you should write a program that calculates the area of a rectangle, and I believe area of a rectangle is length times width, abi, or something else if it isn't. But length times width has two variables: the length and the width, or the height and the width. So you're going to create a variable for height, create a variable for width, and then multiply the two of them, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then you can save the answer as area of rectangle. So you are creating three variables, just like we created um, this date here. The Catherine's age is equal to, so area of a, anyhow you want to do it, you are the one that, you figure it out yourself. So this is the format I want you to write it in. I want you to write it inside your document, just like this. I don't want you to log it out on your console. I want you to write it out in your document dot write. So you're going to write it in this form, just like we have this document dot write. The result of this one is going to be the area of a rectangle. The area of a rectangle is probably, the values of that rectangle would be, let me give you values. The height, okay, no, let me put it this way. The area of a rectangle with a height of 30 and a width of, this height is too high, let me say 10, and a width of 35 is, then you display your answer. So this 10 here is not going to be a string. This thing is going to be a number. And I told you if you want to get a number, like whatever variable you saved it in, you use the comma. So in this case, the height is what you're going to put here. That's the variable name height, the variable name of the width. But you're going to use a comma so that it does not change it to a string. So, and here is where you're going to display the area of the rectangle. Do you have any question?
No.
So this is the format you're going to display it in. The area of a rectangle with a height of 10 and a width of 35 is blah blah blah. Very simple. So go online, check the formula for calculating the area of a rectangle. If it's not height times width, get the correction. Alright, so that will be all for today. When we come to our next class, we'll talk about comparison operators. Okay, so have a good day, and please you guys should always try to go check those videos. The reason why I'm saying it is it will get to a point where you need to make referrals back to those videos, and it will be easier if you can remember in what class this thing was taught. I won't keep going back to say, oh, this, or to be explaining things over and over again, things I taught in the first class. If we're in the sixth class, I'll have to go back to them. And JavaScript is, they're all matched together. So one thing that you have in the other class would also be important in the next class. So have a good day and do my assignment. Both the other one and this one, make sure that both of them are ready. Okay?
Yes.
All right, take care.